let's have a look at this headline in The Guardian. This is about smartphones, and it's about a 17-year-old girl called Flossy McShay, and she is joining a lawsuit against the UK government. And this is after seeing horrific phone videos at school. And we can now talk to a mother who is also joining that campaign, Katie Moore. Thank you very much for speaking to us today. Just tell us what made you decide to join this campaign.
So similar to Flossy, my daughter had some terrible experiences with smartphones at school. I felt like I'd exhausted every reasonable route. I'd spoken to my MP a number of times. I'd wrote to the Department for Education, even petitioned government. Every time the reply was disheartening, it was the same. I felt very unheard. So this legal case feels a real opportunity to go public with our accounts and how school children are being failed in education.
And can you just give us a sense of what kind of thing you're talking about when you say that she was failed and that it was, a very difficult experience for her?
So as a parent, I felt like I had pretty strict boundaries at home. When she started secondary school, there was a big peer pressure to give her a smartphone. So I reluctantly did that, but did all the parental controls and felt like we were doing our best at home. She wasn't going to tell me these things as a 13, 14-year-old, but she will reflect now and tell me basically from year 7 onwards, she was shown indecent images in the changing rooms, anime porns going around in the WhatsApp group. And the very worst of it, which was heartbreaking to discover, was that she was exposed to a live stream of men exposing themselves through a video connection on another student's smartphone within her school room. So within school, these things are happening. I really strongly believe that our stories are not unique. These are harms that are happening up and down the country, wherever schools are allowing smartphones to come onto their premises and anywhere they have a duty of care.
What do you want the government to do?
A statutory ban on smartphones in education, in school settings, anywhere the school has a duty of care, school buses, day trips, residentials, smartphones should not be present.
OK, stay with us, Katie. Barry, what do you think the government should do about this?
I support what is fundamentally behind Ms Moore's case here. I think, if anybody, I would be taking the school to court here, because it is the school that is in charge of those children in loco parentis during the day when they're at school. And if they're allowing that sort of thing to go on in changing rooms or other parts of the school, then they should be controlling that. Many schools in my area don't allow smartphones in school at all. What they do is, if a child brings it in, they go into a locker at the beginning of the day and they then get it back at the end of the day. But that seems to me a perfectly sensible way of doing it. But the school here, the head teacher of that school, should be taking action.
OK, let me just let Katie answer, and then I'll bring you in, Anne. Katie, what do you say to that? This is about the school's failure.
So actually, I don't think it's the school's failure. Government guidance lays out different options for schools and leaves it up to the discretion of head teachers. Head teachers cannot be expected to manage hundreds, if not thousands, of high-value devices coming into schools to then securely look after them and then get them back to students at the end of the day. The government's guidance gives schools the option for a not to be used, seen or heard policy, which, let's face it, means, don't get caught, because they're basically readily available in pockets and bags of school children. That is the easiest option for under-resourced schools to implement. And most schools, I don't know where that politician based, but there is no schools in my area that offer lockers or pouches. They're all stored in pockets and bags because it's the easiest thing for head teachers to do.
Yeah, and what do you say to that point, that actually being in charge of a senior school with potentially over 1,000 pupils and getting them all to hand in their phones every day, it's not really practical?
Well, yes, it is, because patently, obviously, some schools do it. And the idea that because schools have discretion, therefore they are not responsible for how they exercise that discretion, I think is actually quite fanciful. You know, it's all very well always, doesn't matter which government is in power, always people want the government to do something. Now, in this case, and the story is shocking and it does need addressing, but it needs addressing by those immediately responsible. And those are the heads of schools. And if one school can do it, all schools can do it. It needs will and it needs to be imposed. That is to say, if a child is found in breach, you know, that child needs to be punished. It needs to be imposed. But the idea that if government passes a law that will solve the problem, it won't. What will solve the problem is a determined head.
Salma, what do you say to this?
I'm afraid I'm in agreement with the panel here because, so I sit on the board of a think tank called Policy Exchange. We actually very recently looked at this issue and, you know, there is a question about best practice with certain schools and certain head teachers who have been able to enforce the ban through logistical assistance with pouches and things like that.
So what, every day? So children are allowed to bring the phones to school?
I mean,
but they have to put them somewhere.
the ideal is that they don't bring the phones to school in the first place, and that is where parental enforcement has to come in.
Really.
But of course, that is quite difficult if you are trying to keep in touch with your child as well, you know, for safety reasons. So there is the system that's in place. So it can be done effectively. I think it's about how you roll that out. But the question around legislation is an important one, because how do you enforce that legislation? If there are barriers today, that means that the guidance and the discretion that is available can't be enforced, then the legislation would then be pretty ineffective. So you'd go through the process and have a piece of legislation that you can't enforce. So if we are all looking for the same outcome, which we are, which is how do you keep children safe from content that is not appropriate for them, then surely actually starting down at the ground level will be more effective.
Barry?
Look, I'm sorry about all this agreement, but I think there's another issue here. And I don't think any of us want to minimise what Katie Moore's daughter and Flossy have been through. I mean, it's horrific. But we have to accept that actually this is available not just when a child is in school, it's available at all the other times as well. And therefore, it is that's why it is important to look at what harms are being perpetuated through social media. And that's why I think it's important that the government looks at that and what the publication... Well, your party is in favour of complete freedom in that respect.
No, that was not our position. That was... No, I am going to come in here because...
Please do.
No, because you are really distorting the position. We did not say that we thought that the online safety bill was unimportant in terms of child safety. We said we would have to do it in a different way. That's all we said, because of the limitations of freedom of speech. That's all we said. And we did not dismiss child safety. And it is actually a gross calumny to suggest that I am sitting right beside you, you know, standing by this policy to say that I'm dismissing child safety. I'm not.
No, I didn't say you're dismissing it. I said that because you believe in freedom of speech, you allow these
I said we
things
did it in a
on the
different
web.
way, was what I was saying.
Katie, can I just bring you back in here? I mean, what do other parents say to you about this? Because there are some parents who want their children to take phones to school, aren't there?
So I think peer pressure is a massive issue. If you're the only parent sending your child into school with a let's be face it, a safe non-internet basic phone, then there is fear that your child is going to be left out, they're going to be bullied. So a lot of parents are kind of giving in to the peer pressure. I think those that think tracking is an option of these devices. You know, there's no evidence that tracking keeps a child safe. And I think we have to all just agree that ultimately we want our children to be safe, and they should 100% be safe at school. Where smartphones are in and around school settings, there are significant harms. These ideas of lockers and pouches, you know, they don't address the school journey. They don't address day trips and residentials. Smartphones pose significant safeguarding harms to our children.
Yeah. Can I just put something to you? Because we have had people getting in touch about this. So we had Rachel from London has got in touch with us to say that she's talking about a brick phone, which is what you're saying about one that doesn't have internet access. She says this is insufficient. There is no school transport and kids get instant detention if if they're late. If you're going to remove their ability to check if a bus is coming, then you need to take away the punishment too. So there are parents who think the opposite, which is that this is a thing that does keep their kids safe.
So for me, there is no justification to these harms. You know, we have a society basically got used to the convenience of a smartphone and a device. But when you're comparing that to, you know, children being exposed to beheading videos, to exposure to live stream, you know, in my daughter's case, she was exposed to a man masturbating within a school setting. You know, let's talk about the truth. There's no justification for these harms.
Salma?
No, indeed, there's no justification for these harms, but I would...
Do you think parents are too worried about tracking their children?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I wouldn't let my children have a smartphone. I've already told them that they're not allowed screens, and I don't like it that you've got homework that's done on screens either. But I think the question here is, who exposed that kind of content, and what was the punishment in that case as well? Because it's not just about what an institution can do. We are all responsible for that safety. Yeah. So personal responsibility, parental responsibility, and working together with the school community is a really important part of tackling this. It can't just be done by one entity.
Anne?
I mean, I agree entirely. There was a terrible outbreak of agreement here today. But, I mean, I absolutely agree. You know, you've got to ask, not is it right that children should see such things? Obviously it isn't. But you've also got to ask, well, hang on, what was the process by which they saw it? Who actually got that material on his or her phone and then showed it to Flossy and to the daughter? And that person must be held to account, and through that person, the parents.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, it isn't all down to some anonymous body called the government.
Let me just, Katie, just before Katie lets you go, what happens next, Katie?
So the legal papers have been lodged, and the government have a chance now to reflect on these harms. These harms are not individual to Flossy and my daughter. These harms are happening up and down the country. The government have a chance to change documentation and give schools proper statutory guidance. And if they don't, we go to court.
OK. Katie, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme today.